I'll call to order this meeting of the Land Use Working Group, the Public Works Subcommittee on Thursday, November 20th, 2025 at 3 o'clock. And we'll take attendance. I don't see Rob as of yet, but Matt Boger's here. If you can say aye.
Aye, thank you.
And Linda Miller, I'm here. And as well, we have Russ Carlstad, who is our facilities manager from the town. And I also see one member of the Land Use Working Group, Paul Beam, is on the call. He's also on the select board. So with that, thank everyone for joining us. And the first thing that we will address on our agenda is if there is any public comment, please raise your hand. Okay, Tom McShane. Please identify yourself and let us know your comment.
Sure, just making sure I was unmuted. Thank you very much. So my name's Tom McShane, and I work with the Walden Woods Project. And I just wanted to say we've been trying to follow along the work of the local land use working group. And I just wanted to thank the subcommittee for including the CPW functions on Walden Street in your work and analysis, because that's the thing that we're most concerned with. Move the composting, the ice storage, and the recycling operations that are going on there. We would love to meet with you at some time when it's appropriate and convenient. But in the meantime, should any of you have any questions for us, we would be more than happy to help inform you about what's going on over there and why it's so important to move some of those functions off of Walden Street. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And most of our subcommittee meetings have been on Zoom, just for the convenience of both our members and the public, since there's so many meetings across town. But I think some of the land use working group meetings are do have actual attendance rather than virtual. So maybe that might be a place where it might be also useful for you to, request that we all get together. I think that's a great idea, but I'm not sure how many more meetings we can ask people to show up at.
Yeah. I totally understand. And Zoom is fine. However it would work for you guys would be absolutely fine. So I think, as I say, whatever most convenient for you. So thank you.
Yeah, sure. Perhaps we can just put that on as an agenda item.
Right.
Look for that at a future meeting, if you don't mind doing it on Zoom. Great.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. And I see that Rob Almeida has joined us, as has Alan Cathcart. So just to acknowledge that. And then we'll move on to our next item, which is to approve the meeting minutes of October 31, 2025. I hope everyone saw the draft go out. Were there any questions or changes that Rob or Matt you have on those minutes?
None.
If not, then I would ask that we approve the minutes of the October 31, 2025 meeting of the Land Use Working Group Public Works Subcommittee. Could I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, and I'll take a roll call vote. Matt Boger?
Aye.
Rob Almeida?
Yes.
And Linda Miller, yes. So moving on. I think I thought it would be useful, given that Matt and I both toured the 2229 Main Street site, and I see that Paul Beam is here. He was also on that tour yesterday, but of course he's been very much involved in that project for a long time. So we were able to meet with the group from the consulting firm that's working on that. Also, Russ was at the meeting yesterday too. And Maximus and EPA were very informative, I thought, about the history, the cleanup process, and the future viability of the site. And they seem to feel that Concord should be able to eventually use that property in the future with a view to increasing town revenues. And I just thought maybe since that is one of the sites that we've had lots of or indications that people think it might be suitable across the community for a public works site, I thought it might be useful to sort of touch base with you, Matt. Paul can chime in, and Russ as well, in terms of what your thoughts were.
Well, I defer to Paul, who's always very thoughtful, and I'm looking forward to getting Alan's opinions on that property. But first and foremost, I'm just delighted by how professional the EPA and Maximus are doing the project. It was a very insightful tour. It is a large space. And Linda, I appreciate your question at the end when you asked, maybe his name is Bruce, a very intelligent guy, what do you see here in 20 years? I thought he was going to say it's up to you guys, but he said buildings. I was surprised, but also pleasantly surprised that he weighed into that. A, great space for fields. B, great space to build something. It sounds like 2029 would be the date that things would could start. But I was thrilled to see that property. I don't know if you want me to weigh in more, but those are just broad outlines.
And Rob, I didn't mean to skip you if you have seen that as well. So chime in if you have thoughts on 2229.
Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to go tour this facility, so.
Okay, well, you may be able to in the future. It's quite interesting. Yeah, anything you'd like to bring to our attention, Paul?
Yeah, just a little bit. That's about my 10th visit to that site, and it's just amazing how much work has been done. It's really flat. They're working to grade the entire area. They have a few more years of work to do, but I want to bring to this group's attention the fact that the reuse committee, which is it's called NMI Reuse Committee, put together a master plan and various reuse scenarios. It was sort of not compared to what the MCI Advisory Committee did. It's kind of a very light touch on the master plan. At that time, there was no discussion about public works, or other than general municipal needs, there was no specific discussion. But there are several scenarios you might want to take a look at. It's not exactly relevant to this subgroup, but it probably is relevant to the longer land use planning when we get around to it. As far as the timing of that site, the availability for redevelopment, it's not too dissimilar from what MCI, I think we're years out. The only difference is the town is looking to acquire the 2229 site, and that may not occur within the next few years. That probably is quite different than the MCI site. So ultimately, the town will, we think, hopefully, if everything goes right, own 2229 and be in the driver's seat of attracting developers and development there. So that's all I have to add.
And Russ, any thoughts on your updated visit there?
No, there was a couple takeaways while we were there. The fact the long-term care and monitoring is going to be by the EPA and the subgroups, so the town would never be in a position to take care of that. Also, something that they validated that we had brought up before is the quantity of test heads or well heads, 4-inch pipes in the ground. It's like 200 right now. And all those wellheads have to be accessible for testing at various times during the year. So those would limit certain development options because they need accessibility, they would need easements to them, this, that, and the other thing. So that's going to limit what can be built there. Otherwise, looks like a good clean site and it'd be great, you know, it's got some great potential for certain uses. And I think you just have to look at it.
Okay. Well, I think it's on our list. I don't know that it's leading the list, but it doesn't sound like it at this point. There's a reason to change it from being under consideration. So moving on, I think the next item on the agenda is to review the Public Works site criteria. And I don't know if, Rob, you have your file that you'd like to share with us that we can continue to update.
Oops. Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Give me 1 minute, Linda. Sorry.
Sure, no. I'm being savvy and asking you to pull things up because I know it will take about 10 minutes for me to try and show anything on site.
Give me 1 minute. I'm trying to. Not sure if I left it on my Google Drive or if I have it on my home computer. So bear with me. I apologize.
Not a problem.
One more. Oh, here we go. I'll share my screen in 1 second. This thing will open up. So I have to find the copy that we actually worked on, and I apologize here, but I have the original, just matrix.
Hey, Linda, while Rob's looking for that, one other fun fact about 2229.
Yes.
There's a lot of soil removal and a lot of soil replacement, and a big portion of that soil is coming from the 1440 Main Street site. So if you're wondering what the top 10 feet of soil is going to look like at 2229, it's as much as people don't love what's happening at 1440, at least the soil is going to some beneficial use in town. So, and that's, tens of thousands of cubic yards.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure, in terms of environmental use and sustainability, it's good that all of that doesn't have to be shipped miles and miles away. And other fill doesn't have to be brought in from miles and miles away. So sometimes things work in your favor.
So unfortunately, I have the wrong sheet. I'm at my office in Cambridge, so I don't have my personal laptop, which has the sheet on it. So I'll send that out when I get home. My apologies.
That's okay. Well, I think we can just work through then. I have sort of in my mind a list of criteria that I want to make sure we are considering. And then I thought that when we had those criteria, we have both a need to either numerically or qualitatively rank them, and then also determine what weight they should have. So that a criteria like location, how central the public works site would be to Concord, we would both weight each location by how favorable that was, and also rank or give weight to how important that criteria is. And so I just want to make sure that we're all thinking of the same criteria, and then maybe at our next meeting, we can each take a look at that site that map that you put together, Rob, and then we could come to
Did all
that.
of those.
Sorry.
So you probably cut background them and yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. So it seems to me that just brainstorming, key things we need to look at would be location. And I think probably it's preferable that it be more central, and preferable that we have one location rather than multiple locations through town. Then size, I think we have been working with the size of at least 13 acres. And you can correct me, Russ, if there's been any movement on that number. Then I think looking at things like availability and time, time frame is one element that you had highlighted, Rob. And certainly that, would be interesting, MCI versus 2229 and so on. Additionally, we need to think about the cost or the alternative uses for the properties that we're considering. So I'm not sure what we would put in for 2229 in terms of a cost, but we'd have to think about perhaps what uses it wouldn't be used for example, if it were used for municipal use. That is, if this property would be more likely to be used for housing or for commercial development. Those are opportunity costs that the town would have to give up to some extent to use this for municipal use. I know there's some properties that we've looked at that would require that have environmental and sustainability issues, and we'd have to consider the issue of mitigation. We obviously need to think about neighborhood effects, proximity.
Vinny, after 3, what are you doing here after 3?
Proximity to housing or historic preservation and open space considerations. Finally, I think access to a major road would be beneficial for any public works department. And whether there are buildings on the site and what their condition would be, and then the adequacy of water, sewer, electricity, and placement of fueling at the locations. So those are sort of the criteria that I think we should be working through, and I'd like to hear if anyone would like to add to that or subtract from it, in terms of those are be the major issues we need to make some judgments about.
That's a great list, Linda. Did you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or are we going to determine that later on? I think everything you said was valid.
Yeah, no, I think it would be good to decide how we'd want to do a ranking, either just, positionally or give weighting when we have the matrix in front of us.
No, I think we'll have to look at the rankings when we look at each site, but also we probably need to dive a little bit into, because if we're going to make the determination that a location that's more central is going to be beneficial, we'll need to justify that by showing, hey, if we're if each trip is another 30 minutes for, a crew or one worker to go somewhere, how much is that costing us, by going, okay, to a cheaper, more further decentralized location than a centralized location? And we probably need that information to kind of back up how we justify that, hey, there's this initial expense that's going to be higher, but in the long term, it's going to save wear and tear on the vehicles. It's going to save, man hours, excuse me, or labor hours, going out to these various job sites. Or, so, there's that soft cost that we don't look at, and I think that'll help out justifying if we have to spend more money on a preferred, piece of land versus a non-preferred piece of land.
Right. I think that's the kind of work that the municipal consolidation group has been working on. Paul, has any of your work been similar in terms of the calculations you're coming up with?
We're working on the productivity numbers. Mary was working on that, trying to quantify those in terms of trip times. So we don't have those yet, but I think that's within our scope to do. That's really taking into account all the municipal buildings and looking to a municipal consolidation. So we're not looking at the public works possibilities, although there's certainly an overlap. So the data, once we pull that out, will be useful for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different, a little different for trip times for administrative people versus trip times for a crew.
That's right. And we're not looking at vehicle trip times. Yeah, that's a whole
Yeah.
separate thing.
And then I think also our time or our assessment will be somewhere between yours and what public safety is doing, because for public safety, there is the emergency aspect of their work, and to a lesser degree, there's some emergency requirements as well from public works. If there's a water main break or a trees go down or things like that. So that's something to be considered in terms of how long it takes to get from one portion of town to another, and how, is there a response time that one thinks about for public works, and what percent of their calls are necessary, needed because of response time. So I don't, we're sort of,
I'm wondering if there's any baseline information, Alan, but existing information on, vehicle mileage, for example, or vehicle time that all sorts of vehicles are out on the road doing work. I don't know, because that's an important starting point.
Yeah, Paul, we'll look into that. Russ, you can talk with Aaron and Mike, our fleet mechanic, to see what we have. And just for, to be helpful, and again, I'm trying not to talk a lot because, I could go on forever, but it is interesting. We have both administrative kinds of operations and kind of what I call our, sort of managerial kind of functions, which have one kind of travel need. We have our operations, which are both emergency for significant events like storm events. It can be days on end versus more immediate, trees down, that kind of thing. So that's different. And then we also have the routine operations of just with having to maintain the right of way around town and properties around town for routine kind of work. So, just to kind of share those concepts. Don't assume everybody kind of knows how we tick, but those are kind of three different ways of thinking about what travel and transportation means. And I also know that part of the travel and transportation is time in traffic, which is not just distance, but time. And that's an interesting just to put on the radar. I don't know how to factor it in, but it's an important factor.
Yeah, I think in all these calculations, you got to make certain assumptions. For example, if you had from all of your odometer readings, if you had the sum total of all miles in a given year, and I'm sure Russ has that in the back of his mind, then you could just do a differential mileage with other sites. It's added mileage. Now, how to convert that to traffic time is a whole different thing. I don't know.
Right. And I mean, for example, I tend to think of 2229 as very far away, but yesterday when I went over there at 1 o'clock, there was no traffic. I mean, so I was there literally in 10 minutes, and I'd expected it could take me half an hour, but if I'd gone at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it probably could have taken me half an hour or 40 minutes. So yeah, the mileage and the travel time are two different things. Yeah.
Well, then you have a ton of school buses all around there too.
Yeah.
Hey, Linda, you commented about 13 acres, which again, that was a great list. That would be wonderful if we could get that printed out just so when we go to the sites, we can give our little scorecard. The 13 acres, in your mind, what does that encompass? That encompasses everybody? What is the 13 acres? That is the whole. How did you get that number? I'm sorry that I'm not familiar with that. Is that putting everyone in one spot, or you're just saying 13 acres in one spot would be?
That's that's from the 2020 study, lifting us up and putting us on proper size space.
Okay. Lifting who? You guys or the
Concord
entire?
Public Works, the entire
Okay.
facility over there, taking this campus as one unit, lifting it up, flying it over somewhere else and dropping it, and it would fit perfectly on 13 acres with some additional construction.
So that doesn't include administrative, like town manager type stuff, right? That's a different.
This is just Concord Public Works.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and
So-
just
so that-
one other clarification, that was Concord Public Works circa 2017, 18, and before we accepted responsibility for facilities, which is another division. But I think it's close to what we would probably need, so just, with those caveats, that's all.
Thank you.
But it wouldn't include the wastewater treatment facility or the water, any of the water sites in wells and such, and it wouldn't include wouldn't include the areas near Walden Woods, would it?
Correct. No, so thank you, Linda. Again, we're sort of the apple and apple is we've never had all of public works in one campus. Some of it's strategic, but some is just out of necessity. For instance, our wastewater infrastructure stations are driven by geography, not where our base camp is, where the wells are, where the water is, where the wastewater needs to be pumped. So we have small sites that don't take lots of footprint, but they're part of public works. We have other sites like the compost former landfill area, which serves another need, which is very aerial expansive. That's not included within that, 13 acres plus or minus. And I think what we're really talking about is the group that deals with the day-to-day operations headquarters, which includes some administrative functions, managerial functions, engineering functions, and operations. And operations, again, is not just people and office space, but garage area for vehicles and fleet, as well as storage of materials for construction and sort of laydown areas for equipment. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Do you have that broken out? You have 13 acres broken out into those categories you just talked about, sort of buildings versus outdoor lay down storage space. Do you have that breakdown? I think that'd be very useful.
Russ, you want to speak to that? I think it is kind of captured in the report from 2019-20, right?
It's in the 2020 study, and I think the total square footage was about 87,000 square foot, and the footprint was around 74,000 because it would be a two-story space where there'll be admin. And the rest of it would all be serviceable for vehicles and indoor storage for vehicles. But we couldn't put all the vehicles, well, on the 13 acres, we could put all the vehicles in storage in that 87,000, I believe. But again, that was 2020. We have a few more vehicles now. We might have a few more people, so we may have to stretch it a few percent.
And
You know, the change in the traffic pattern in Concord might be thoughtful as well as the rotary dissolves. That can open up some space too. There's a lot to think.
I mean, I'm gonna interject there, Matt, with if they go with the plans that I've seen for the overpass, it's gonna actually take a lot more real estate because they're gonna be widening the rotary. They're probably gonna have to take that gas station amongst other things. I've seen the preliminary plans from 2 or 3 years ago. I was looking at bidding another project for MassDOT and I happened upon those plans. So my question, kind of going off of Paul's information that he's looking for, is if we had to go down the road of splitting, ideally, I know we want to get one campus and that's what we want to shoot for, right? But what could we do to split campuses that would make sense, that would be efficient? Like, would there be a place for material storage versus equipment storage? If you have like your winter equipment, you obviously don't need it at your fingertips, during the summertime versus, the equipment that you need for the summertime, you don't need it during the winter. What could we do to kind of, make it work the best way, just so we have that option in the back of our pocket if we can't get that 13 acres.
Rob, another very good point. And in essence, that's kind of the business as usual, which we should capture, because that is how we make the small area we have function today. It's by sort of, storing equipment offsite when it's not, for instance, plows, heavy equipment that are used for snow response are stored in different areas. Part of it is up at the compost site, for instance. So that's where we do have to look for when we're over capacity. What do? Well, we have satellite areas that we use. I'd also say, Rob, you mentioned the flyover or whatever might happen with the rotary. Just for this group, we have tentatively identified, a water treatment facility that is where that spoils pile for construction that's, over in the light plant, right by the rotary. That is an area where we've identified is the most viable option for a drinking water treatment facility from Nagog Pond, believe it or not. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but we've had that and done some assessment work and design work on that footprint because it could house our water treatment facility, and we don't have a lot of other options for that. That's again dictated by the location and source of water, not anything else. So just put it out there.
And Alan, I just wanted to add on scale. Concord is a certain scale town with a certain population and certain size of the public works. A lot of the times, the different divisions borrow each other's equipment. So separating the divisions becomes a little bit more of a equipment management issue if pieces of equipment are remote from a central location. And that just adds more to the labor cost and, time inefficiencies that we're trying to solve here.
so the area that you have at the over by Walden Woods, that's not included in the 13 acres.
That's correct. Those functions haven't been considered to be rolled into that area because that area, would add a few more acres anyway.
What would you
I guess
back of the envelope? We really need to get down to some,
Yep.
Just sort of
Yeah, there has been no plan to relocate that to any other area in town because it just hasn't been politically acceptable to relocate that. So there really hasn't been a lot of discussion on that, other than Walden Woods' interest, which is very clear. But there's been lots of internal discussion over the decades on the operations. But the question is, what area is useful for public works over there? And I think we can give you that kind of a number. I don't have it off the top of my head.
It seems to me maybe some of those operations would be suitable for 2229 Main Street. If not on the, I mean, they've been separated there.
One of the issues, and I'm not going to, there's a long conversation. Again, I'm sort of summarizing things I'm
sorry.
inheriting. But one of the issues is proximity and location and traffic for high volume and during emergencies, because that storm, management area as well off of Route 2, it's accessible. But if you put storm related as well as resident density activities, like when people are bringing compost to and taking from that site, that's a large volume of traffic. And that's putting that into another area of town like 2229 Main. Well, it could be done. What's that impact going to be? And it's just, it's part of the proximity of that site is a premium, not just because of Walden Woods thinks it's a premium because it's accessible for the emergency services as well as the convenience for residents to have access. So that's part of the discussion that I believe has happened in the past, but I haven't been front and center. But I know it's been a couple decades of the same conversations that we can revisit. But I don't have that at my fingertips.
I guess in my mind, I would have thought that a site where you'd want to attract residents to take their recycling is not the same site that you'd want for emergency preparedness.
Yeah, well, that's part of the discussion. And again, Linda, I don't want to. There's
Okay,
been hours of discussion that I haven't
I'm
been at,
sorry.
but I remember the meetings and public works commissioners and the director back in the time. There's a lot of energy. Our energy's been sort of not focused on that lately. I'm sure we can regroup and start uncovering what that history is. Be a good time to do it.
Okay. Any other thoughts in terms of site criteria? Okay, so I think some of the other questions that we'd had were on the list of sites that we have. I think one outstanding question was the lease information on the site around Bedford Road. Have we made any discoveries there in terms of that lease?
Yes, I think it happened so quickly. I'm not sure if I actually shared that. Russ, do you recall? This is the lease for the agriculture area.
Right, that was a key
That's right.
question we had
That's
on
right.
it.
What I think what I got was a Word document, but not the executed document. I will follow up.
Yeah, I've got no information on those leases. I haven't found anything.
But Delia provided something, but it was a Word document, not the executed document, and it was literally right after our last meeting. So I apologize. I will find an executed version. It did have some flexibility with notice from the town. I think it allows the town significant flexibility to repurpose it for town purpose, with fairly short notice. But I'll make sure I get the executed document to the group or through Shannon so she can make sure it's to the group.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah. Sorry
Thank you.
about that.
That's okay. We got a lot of data and information to keep trying to round up here. so I had tried to do a little bit of work on looking at locations. And I don't know if I can share my screen as well, how that will work here. I'll try. No, I just lost it. Share. Here we go. Can you see that? Okay.
Yep.
So what I did was I went to AI and I asked in Massachusetts, where are public works departments located? And I thought, what's a better way than to get like the consensus of what is out there, what people think a public works, where it should be. So I did that, and then it went. This is just what I got back. That it's kind of funny, and this is kind of an example of why you'd never want to use AI, because it says, well, you don't want to be located in a town center. You want to be on the perimeter of town for all these reasons: space requirements, noise, traffic, zoning, land use, access, egress, operational needs, historic context. And then it came and said, for example, the Concord, Mass. DPW facility is located on Keyes Road, which is outside the main commercial and historic center. I thought that was classic.
No, that's scary, not classic.
It's scary. So, but then I went and I used this map geo that it's just GIS, but it's a provider of GIS. And so I got used to it, and I got all sorts of towns, and I looked at where their locations were. And so this is Acton, and you can see this is the Acton. Well, you can see this isn't peripheral to the town, right? That's
It
pretty.
hasn't, your view hasn't changed, Linda? It's the same document?
Yeah, it's just all rolling down on this document. I have all, oh, you can't
And we don't
see.
see that.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, we just see the top few
Oh,
bullets.
you just see the first page.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I wonder why that is. Oh, here, let's try it this way.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Now
There
you're
we go.
scrolling. Yes,
Okay,
you're
yeah,
scrolling.
okay, so there's the Concord.
Jeez.
Yeah, thank you, AI. I put that in. So I have about a dozen of these, and again, I just got it from this Map GIS system because it was easier to just get on that and get a few. So here's where Acton's Public Works is. Again, and some of these may be, I didn't go down to make sure that they were both administrative and operational. Here's Chelmsford, also very central. Framingham is all the way down here, which, if you look at Framingham, well, where else are you going to put it? Here's Lexington.
Yeah, the Framingham guys
Yep.
hate their location, by the way.
Yep. Let's see, Middleborough. Where did that? Oh, it's right here. Again, very central. A little further away, but kind of between 44 and 495. Natick is over here. Not particularly central, but close to 27. North Andover, again, pretty central. Northborough. I can't, all this green, I think, was other town services, other municipal, but the little blue area there is Northborough. Norton, again, this is their public works. Peabody. That's a nice spot, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Seekonk, I don't, I don't think there's much of a
Although I'd say Peabody's no
terrible.
Concord. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, a lot of these are no Concord, but they are Massachusetts.
Right.
And then I went through and I tried, I have each location that we're sort of looking at. And then I tried to I couldn't get them all on one locate. I couldn't figure out how to do that on our GIS system. So here's where we currently are. And then this is Virginia Road. This let's see, this is Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the wastewater treatment on Bedford Road. Here is MCI Concord, and here's 2229. So this helped me just visualize what we're talking about in our location assessments. And so if we had this on our matrix, I think you could start thinking about what number you would give to 2229 versus, we're a little bit more central. But that's only one criteria. So, but I think that, it's like what AI thinks and what towns do are very different things. So,
Linda, that was helpful. Thank you.
well, it was interesting. So now I was hoping we could get an update from Alan and Russ, because I know there are a number of studies underway or planned that will have some bearing and thinking about where a public works site could be. And I wondered where we are in terms of those studies, what information they'll provide that would be helpful to this subcommittee, and sort of what is the timing. Do you think you could walk us through that in the next 10 minutes?
Yeah, Russ, do you want to take the lead? I think,
Yeah, I got some information.
sure. And Linda,
So-
you can stop sharing and then we can kind of see.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I always do the same thing. I leave it up and then it's,
Uh-oh. What did I do?
you don't have to, but
Oh,
go
yeah.
ahead,
Oh,
Russ.
there we go.
Excuse me.
There we go. Thank you.
So the biggest push we have right now is there is an area at MCI that we're interested in for CPW use. Basically, to take the concept of the 2020 study and work it over at MCI. We have a proposal from a local architect to do that study for us. That is at the townhouse now, waiting to go through the signature process and procurement and with Kerry. The activity has already been approved and the money's been appropriated. As soon as I get the okay or the knowledge or the copy of the paperwork, everything's signed off, the architects can jump on this and get some information out relatively quickly, in maybe 7 to 14 days, and have a presentation ready. And to prove or disprove the MCI reuse. We're anticipating it'll be a positive outcome, but we'll let the architects go through and decide that. Go ahead.
So when you say the architects, like what will their output be? What information?
Well, they'll put together a
Is
set
this
of
just a
documents.
schematic
Yeah, schematic,
drawings,
same
or-
same scale as we did with Peabody, but to a little more detail. because we have more information than we do with Peabody. You know, this, I don't want to get too deep into it. You know, there's some thought process already on the existing buildings. I know people are concerned about existing building conditions and this and that. I've been over there a number of times and I haven't seen major problems. Yes, we have to clean it up. Yes, we have to put power. Yes, we have to do all the things we have to do. But we don't have to build a building and we don't have to bury buildings if we do go over there. But we've done some sketch layouts, and everything that we need to fit can fit on there. And it's actually less than 13 acres, the way the buildings are situated. The way we can use the space more efficiently. So, but it'll be very interesting to see what they come up with at the end of the day, once we get the final approval from Townhouse.
Russ, I think it's also, important. I know for Matt and Rob, they may not have heard. I know Paul and Linda have been to many of the meetings. The structural integrity of those facilities is important, and the concern of repurposing something is it for a couple decades or longer matters, and I think that's what part of the assessment is to determine.
Yeah, there will be an assessment, but you look at those buildings and the construction of them. If you didn't touch them, they'd still be standing in 30 years. They wouldn't look good, but they'd still be standing. So there's a lot to look at, and that's as far as we'll go with that. We want the professionals to tell us what they think.
Hey Russ, question: does that assessment include access? Because I know DCAM is really interested in when there's a master plan to kind of think about access. How and also with the Rotary, how things would work in getting in and out of various parts of that site. Is that an access evaluation?
The access will be evaluated for the CPW use.
Yeah.
But on the back burner, while they're thinking about this stuff, they're thinking about other uses on the site and how to screen, how to shade, and possibly how to give access, secondary roadways as may be needed. Those are always sort of back of the burner things the architects will think of when they're looking at it.
Right. I'm just thinking on the public work piece, is there an access component to what they're doing? It sounds like the answer is yes. Yeah.
That's the only major initiative we have going now. We're waiting to get some other studies done on other buildings outside of the CPW overview, but that's it for public works right now.
Okay, and in terms of any cleanup needed for this site, will that be?
That'll be broached. Again, you need to have a licensed site professional come in and do it. One of the buildings is older and will need maybe a little more, but that building in the scenario is not going to be a habited building, so it'll be a different kind of assessment. The other buildings are relatively new on the scale of things, and they have less bad elements in them, so they'd be of a lower cleanup level. I'm talking quality, quantity, and cost. Yeah, so again, it's to be determined. And there were people in those buildings, and the state prison system did do a lot of remediation in there already because of potential lawsuits and things over the years.
Yeah, Linda, to layer on, I always think there's two levels. There is the cleanup of the site if the buildings were to be demolished, and the earthwork, situation. Russ is speaking specifically to the building, structure component. So there's kind of two factors in play. And part of the repurposing of those structures, if they could be, is that you can possibly avoid some costly, site work, mitigation below, just to keep on the radar.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot of talk about quote unquote remediation at MCI, but it's really dependent on what the uses are going to be in specific locations.
Well, yeah, I mean, and one of the big issues is the wall, right? I mean, this doesn't have anything to do with the wall, but that's, taking that down is very expensive, even if you've reused the material that you've taken down. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a cost associated with that wall for sure.
yeah. Demolition.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's MCI. Okay. And then I think Alan, you mentioned, and we talked a little bit before about any kind of peer site reviews or
Yeah,
benchmarking or
yeah,
what things
yeah.
that
So
we
what?
could be thinking about as well in terms of, if we have the opportunity for a state of the art, or if we have an opportunity
Yeah.
for a renovated.
Yeah, so we were looking, and Russ was going to follow up. I don't know, Russ, if you had any luck on communities around us directly, so we can maybe have a field trip. And quite honestly, it's important for staff. I want the senior managers in Public Works to go on these field trips, but we're thinking about going to Lexington, which has a
Yeah,
facility.
Weston, Lexington, and Bedford. And I've reached out to them through email, and I'll follow up again tomorrow.
Okay, so these are neighboring communities with different newer public works facilities. I will say Lexington, I remember it being, a showcase in its time. This is about 10 years ago, and I think it's still relative. And they were a lead kind of design. It was very innovative in the time. So, and if we do this, it's obviously going to be open to this group. We'll put the, kind of a heads up. You'd be welcome to attend. And I really want my staff to get an understanding of, what's out there, because they're pretty much used to what we have, but they may not know what even is available. So we'll schedule that and provide an invitation to this group.
Yeah, that would be great if we could piggyback on that effort. I
Yeah.
think it probably would be eye-opening.
Do we
We're
know
probably
of speaking of Lexington? I'm sorry, go ahead, Alan. Sorry about that.
I was going to say, so it won't be next week, but maybe the week after. I think time-wise, we should be within the month. We hope to do this.
Great.
So with some of these new facilities, Lexington 10 years ago, et cetera, are there grants or significant low rate loans that either the state or the federal government can provide for movement of these things and or development? Public safety, construction, et cetera?
We're not quite there yet, Matt, but
Okay.
those are good. I think that's going to be the financing and, those opportunities, I think is going to be its own significant effort. And I'm sure with police and fire, it's the same thing, right? I mean, the whole idea with the land use working group is town interests, but if there's a niche for public works, we certainly would be, looking into that. With that said, I'm not particularly optimistic, regrettably. I think the bigger initiatives might be more regional. I think the local options I'm not aware of. But again, maybe this subcommittee might pick up or hear. Maybe we'll ask AI. Who knows what it'll tell us? Happy days are here again.
All right. So next steps for moving ahead, I think are to update our matrix. I'm sorry, there's somehow an echo. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can. Update our matrix. If Rob can circulate that, we could put additional input into that. And then I think just moving forward and trying to think of criteria, other visits. I would like to see, I think, the wastewater treatment facility that we do have.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we could set something
Yeah.
up. Others could join in.
That's an easier one to schedule. So, is there an interest just, because we certainly can. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and why that's important is because the connectivity potentially with the wastewater plant that we're not talking about at MCI, which is kind of a different beast, but very, very real. And, just to remind people, the town could take ownership of that facility independent of a public works. So those are two different things. But that's where the public works first came into interesting consideration when we thought about the complementary use of that area. That's all.
And I do think that the area around, some of those fields around that area, and there's a lot of municipal land as well around that facility is something
Correct.
keep on
Agreed.
keep pursuing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a twofer. That makes sense. Yeah. So we'll do that. I'd say we'll schedule something the week after next, get that on the books, hopefully by the end of tomorrow.
That'd be excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else that anyone would like to bring up?
Linda, I'll reach out to Shannon and yourself, figuring out where the best place would be to store the document, so that we can make changes as we need to. At least, the
Yeah.
three of us, including Matt, would be, and Paul as well. So that way
Yeah.
we have the four of us can get access the document and make changes on the fly.
That would be great because Shannon is the right person to negotiate exactly where that should reside. Perfect. Thank you, Rob.
And Linda, that list, sorry, and Linda, that listing that you had at the beginning of the criteria, can you put that pen to paper and distribute that? That's really great. Or is that
Yeah.
already on that list?
I think
A lot of it,
a lot of it is,
Yep.
but I'll just shoot that out.
Because in some ways, I'd love to just create a scorecard that each place that we view, that each one of us can just make little notes on that. So I know in Excel it gets a little confusing, but like a grading paper of those criteria, and then we can add other ones later on might be useful, at least for myself. Thank you.
Great.
Sorry.
No. I was going to say, Linda, I know you're probably not quite there yet, but eventually in the economic analysis, one missing link that we have on the municipal side, and I think you guys have here, is the cost of a quote unquote new building. Because I think any place other than MCI, you'd have to build something, right? And so, at some point it'd be useful to get an estimate of, given the square footage that you need for those buildings,
Yeah, I
what
think
they
at one
cost.
point, Judith said that she had some data. I think she's put some data together for public safety. So I
Yeah,
think she was going to look and see if her source had public work data as well, but otherwise we'll have to default and go to the AI and see if they can find what all those public works buildings cost. But yeah.
when I asked them about what would the cost to convert a school building into municipal use, which has been done a lot, I got some really useful information. It's a range, and you have to evaluate it carefully. But AI is not great at giving opinions, but it is great at pouring out data.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be giving you an opinion soon, Paul. Don't worry.
Well, that's AC, Alan Cathcart. AC gives out opinions and data.
All right. Everyone have a great rest of the day. And if we don't get together before Thanksgiving, have a wonderful holiday.